Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast with Dan Casper.
Recapping, venting, chatting, talking about the performance last night, a 40-40 tie. Just perfectly what we love, right? Late night game, early wake-up call the next morning. Not only does it go to overtime, but then it ends in a tie. And I after a tie, it's like the movie Talladega Nights when Ricky Bobby gets interviewed for the first time and he's like, I don't know what to do with my hands. Like, I don't know how to react after a tie. Are you happy? Are you upset? Are you annoyed? Are you like whatever? Like, I don't know how to react, especially after a game, how it transpired last night. Like, on one hand, it's like, maybe thank goodness they were able to at least get out of there with a tie, but then at the same time, it's like, but this team was up 13-0, and then a blocked flip and extra point leads to 2 points and changes the momentum in this thing. And you look at the first two halves, and it's like, okay, first half, first quarter and a half, whatever the heck you want to call it. It's like, all right, Green Bay jumps out to an early lead. Looks like offense is rolling. Looks like defense, quick 3 and out. Okay, here we go. Then it's like, what the heck happened to the defense in the second half? Offense is moving the ball. They're putting up points. They're scoring. Love's throwing for 337 yards. Jacobs is actually finding some running room. Heck, even Emmanuel Wilson is finding some running room. It's like, okay, offense is now kind of doing its thing, even though they made a couple of stupid decisions to end the first half. Penalties and turnovers. Again, how in the world do you have, granted it didn't really come back to bite them, but still, twice in that game, down at the 1, how do you have a false start from your offensive lineman? Twice happening in the game last night. Twice. That is inexcusable. But at least, offense, second half, moving the ball, going toe-to-toe, kind of going into a little bit of a shootout here with Dallas. But if anybody thought we were going to see that type of defensive performance, that is the most disappointing thing from last night's game. Corners. Whew. You go into a game, no CD Lamb, kind of thinking Jake Ferguson's going to be the guy, going to be the go-to guy, and he did get a touchdown but to allow George Pickens to have 8 catches for 134 yards and a couple of TDs, after singing the praises of this cornerback group for the first 3 games, holy moly. That was a game that I want to say forget about, but I don't necessarily want them to forget about, because I want them to sit there and watch that performance that they all had. Nixon, Hobbs, Valentine, all of them, because that was a pitiful performance from the corners. And, you go into a matchup where, to begin with, Dallas's offensive line hasn't been performing that great, and then they have 2 backups in there, and you get 1 sack. 1 sack. That was barely a sack because it 0-yard loss. Granted, it saved a touchdown at the end. It was Micah Parsons' sack, but that was it. That was it. They got 5 quarterback hits on him, and no turnovers. And only, by the way, 1 tackle for loss. 1 tackle for loss in that game. Where are these turnovers for a defense that prides themselves? That's their number 1 goal. You go back to last year. Jeff Hafley talked about it. We want to lead the league in turnovers. And then this offseason, preseason, and training camp, they focus on Okay, we did a really good job at interceptions last year. Now, let's up it up a little bit, and let's focus on forcing some more fumbles. They ain't getting anything right now. And they've got to figure out a way. Matt LaFleur mentioned it after the game last night. We have got to figure out a way to get some turnovers in this thing. And going up against an offense that was missing their top receiver, couple of backup offensive linemen, and looking at how your defense has performed the first 3 weeks, especially from a pressure standpoint, that was incredibly disappointing of a performance. I mean, Dak Prescott, for the most part, looked fairly comfortable back there. 31 of 40. 319 yards, 3 touchdowns, had a rating of a 124.9. And it's the second week in a row, too, when you look at the rookie from last week going up against Cleveland. The run defense, I mean, Williams, 20 carries, 85 yards. Got to tip your cap to Schottenheimer and the Cowboys offense. They were having success moving the football, whether it was short passes, screen games, and then hitting some big plays to Pickens. They figured out something, how to attack Jeff Hafley's group. They figured out something, how to be consistently moving that ball down the field and putting up some darn points. I mean, how many punts did Dallas? So they did have 4 punts, which actually, I'll be honest with you, was a little bit more than I thought they had in that one, but don't know how many they actually had in the second half, to be honest with you. But that, when we look at this game, that's the number one thing that's incredibly disappointing about is the defensive performance. There's no question about it. And the level that they'd set the first 3 weeks, and coming off of last week's performance and looking what you had in front and looking at what Dallas was giving you. And here's the thing, too. Like, Dallas was putting up points in the first couple weeks of the season, but it just pointed at everything from a Packers defensive standpoint to a Dallas's offensive standpoint. There was a lot of advantages pointing to Green Bay. And to do what they did, to put what the type of performance that they did on the field last night, I'd be embarrassed. I'd be embarrassed. And special teams, again, I know it's across the league. Blocked field goals, blocked extra points, blocked this, that, punts, whatever. But this is a reoccurring theme for Green Bay. Again. Blocking, coverage. I mean, what are we doing here? What are we doing? Like, I've got confidence in McManus and such, but how many of us, raise your hand, right before he kicked that field goal to tie it, you're pretty darn nervous. Like, just please protect, cover. Heck, there was even a couple of kicks afterwards. Like, I'm like, boy, he looked like he barely got that off because of the pressure coming in. Why? Is it strictly because, I've seen this thrown out there. Is it strictly because, well, you look at the offensive line injuries to Green Bay. So these guys are playing, more on as because, you got to elevate Morgan and Kennard and some of these other offensive linemen. So you're taking them away from special teams and such. To me, that's more of an excuse and such. I mean, a lot of those backup offensive linemen are still playing special teams regardless. Even if they're up as a starter, they're probably still suiting it up on the special teams. So I don't really buy that. That's just a poor job performance. It's a poor performance. And if that Cleveland game was supposed to be a game that, quote-unquote, humbles this team, what do we call last night's game then? I don't have a word for it. I don't have a description for it. I was thinking about this last night. I'm like, okay, Cleveland was supposed to be a humbling experience, or to kind of, take, if Green Bay had their heads up in the clouds, super confident, ego all over the place, and Cleveland humbled them. What was last night then? Because we can't say humbling again. Offensively, I look at this game. I know we're going to focus a lot on the defensive side and some of the special teams issues and such. I look at it offensively. And, the performance, Jordan Love is definitely a hot topic or a lightning rod of a topic for many Packers fans. And if you look at his line, he ends up going 31 of 43, 337 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Quarterback rating of a 118.1. And I want to and I've been one to back up Jordan Love this season so far. And I feel like I'm one that has, tried to be the simmer down now guy when it comes to Love, and maybe feel like he gets a little bit more flack than such. And I'm not saying he had an awful game. He did not have an awful game at all last night. But there were just a few plays that it's like, dude, what are you doing? What's going on here? What's the mindset? What's the thought process? I mean, there was a couple plays last night. It's like one of those. I mean, it was kind of fitting with Favre in attendance, I guess. I mean, the lateral or whatever, I was like, okay, that was kind of sweet. Okay, wizardly type of play, awesome, cool. But then it's like, okay, the fumble, you got to be more aware. You got to be more aware. Pocket presence, having the ball that low, having it out wide. Got to be more aware of that. And almost blowing it at the end in overtime. The lack of awareness, and I just literally 1 second away from blowing it and not even attempting a field goal to have a tie. Stuff like that. It's just like, gotta clean that up. I know it's like he's just not quite there. Like I was sitting there watching the game last night, and I'm like, he's not at that level yet for me. And I'm not saying he can't be, but he's still probably not at that level for me where I'm like, all right, I'm feeling good that we're going to come down and we're going to score. We're going to take the lead. Now, they did. I'll give them that. They did last night. But there's still like times where I'm just like, I don't know if I have that confidence right now. Not saying it can't change. Right now where it's like, okay, team's on the shoulders. Carry us. Like Rodgers did. And Rodgers wasn't like that right away in his career. A lot of quarterbacks aren't like that in their careers. But when you think about the greats, the best quarterbacks in the league, you're like, okay, we need a big play. We need a big play. We can't have stupid mistakes. We need a big play from that quarterback. It still makes me a little bit nervous. And maybe it's just because he's still, this is his third year in the league. Hopefully that'll come. I know he's still young in terms of, experience-wise and such, but I don't want to take away from the performance that he had last night, because overall it was a solid performance, but there's still those couple plays, those few plays where it's like, can't have that. Can't have that. I mean, the fumble was a game-changing play. And that decision, the awareness at the end there, and you saw LaFleur go up to Love right away after that where there's just 1 second left. I mean, if you're a lip reader, you could kind of, or not even a lip reader, you could kind of tell, what's the thought there? What are we doing there? Because you can't waste that time. I didn't quite get it. And I'm just like, ugh. I want him to take that next step, and I think that's where we began this year 3 of the Love era, where it's like, we got to see that progression. We've got to see that consistency. Again, I don't want to take away anything from the performance he had last night because the offense had its issues last night, no question about it. But in the second half, it sure seemed like they cleaned up some of it. And they were coming away with points, and they were going down the drive, and finally the running game got going. Josh Jacobs finally get going. But you still had stupid mistakes from the offensive line. From guys like Elton Jenkins and Jordan Morgan, who we shouldn't be having that. And I know Morgan's missed a lot of time last year. Second year, first-round pick. We can't be having that. Elton Jenkins, we can't be having that. I mean, the progression to where he's gone to center, and I know Elton last week was very critical of his play. I don't think it has gone as well as we kind of assumed or thought it would go for Elton moving over to center. But you saw, again, the depth get challenged at this offensive line. And you just hope Zach Tom could come back soon. Aaron Banks could come back soon, and maybe we can get a little bit more depth there. But I was just glad to see finally the running game get going there because I was ready this morning to be talking about what's going on with this running attack. What's going on? Is it just strictly the offensive line play that's not allowing Josh Jacobs the freedom, the holes to get it? Finally, they kind of got it going there a little bit. But I made this list last night. I'm like, and it was like probably third quarter or such. At that time, there was lack of a running game, offensive line injuries, giving up pressures, penalties, turnovers, stupid turnovers. But I'll say, too, like questionable play calling. Again, I like Matt LaFleur. I hope Matt LaFleur turns into, or I don't know if turns into is the right one, but I want Matt LaFleur to succeed. I like Matt LaFleur. I want him to succeed. But there are some things that are just not clicking, and it felt like sometimes offensively, are we just getting guys involved to get guys involved instead of just naturally letting things happen, instead of just, okay, we got to focus on and getting our best guys out there and let's build around them. It's not a participation trophy league. It's not like, hey, we're handing out participation ribbons. I don't want to get guys involved just to get guys involved. I think, yes, we want roles for certain players, and we want to try to put players in a position to succeed, and we want to be able to showcase that we are a versatile offense and can do multiple things. But it can't come at the expense of holding back your offense. And it can't come from the expense of having these type of games, close games, or bad offensive performances. I want things to kind of just naturally happen, and there's no flow right now to me in the offensive game plan. And is that because of the injuries to the offensive line where it's affecting stuff? Is it other areas? Is it all the above? There just doesn't seem to be this momentum flow, whatever we want to call it. Like it's missing right now. And it's frustrating. And again, I don't know if it's just strictly because they're adjusting and having to try to figure out to get through it until they can get their health back on the offensive line. But there's just something missing right now when it comes to this offensive play calling. There's been good moments. There's been great moments. There's been some really good play calls here and there. But then there's like calls like, what are we doing here? Now, I know there's a lot of debate about not going for it on fourth down in the first half. Was it the first quarter? It was like 4th and 2. Or 4th and 1. I think it was 4th and 2. And I quite kind of questioned it too. Like, I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, okay. Because I get both sides of it. You're going up against, at that point, like it was like, okay, Dallas' defense, your offense. A lot of people's like, we should be able to pick that up. Got to be aggressive. You're at the kind of the middle of the field. So I understand that aspect because I was like, I thought they were going to go for it. But then I understand the other side. It's like, okay, at that point, it's early in the game. You're thinking your defense is still your defense from the first 3 weeks. You pin them down deep. Let your defense eat. Let them go to work. Hope for a quick 3-and-out. You're going to get good field position. So I understand both, but I guess for me, I probably would have chosen to go for it because at the same time, it's like, okay, if you have that trust in your defense, and at that point I think we still did, if you don't pick it up, you probably still trust your defense to hold them at the midway mark. But then it's like, we can't have both sides where we're critical then right before the half, where they were uber aggressive with less than a minute. What was it, like 30, 40 seconds left? We can't sit there and say, we wish we were aggressive, calling out his lack of aggressiveness, 4th and 2, wanting to go for it, and then saying they should have just ran the ball and let the clock go out before the half. We can't say wanting to be more aggressive in that situation and not being aggressive in that situation. It's one or the other. But that's the problem I have right now with some of the decisions on the offense. It doesn't feel like there's this singular mindset. Are we going to be aggressive or are we not going to be aggressive? Because in one instance we weren't, and the other we were. So what is it? What are we going to be? We know Detroit, for example, they're always going to be aggressive. We know it. That's their mindset. That's their style. That's what they are. That's their identity. And I really don't know if we have an identity. I don't really know if we have a mindset yet. And that's one of my biggest issues right now when it comes to the play calling and the offensive decisions so far. And it still boggles my mind on some of these penalties and decisions, and I don't know. It's frustrating. Like, if I had to use one word to describe last night's game, obviously frustrating comes to mind, disappointing, lackluster, bunch of ones I know I can't say right now. So it's really disappointing. It's really disappointing, and it sucks. Let's just call it for what it is. It sucks. A tie sucks. Losses are awful. Losses, you're really but this feels like a loss. It's not a loss in that column, but this really feels like a loss because there was no reason for that type of performance. It was inexcusable, especially from the defensive side. This might as well be a loss. I don't know how it's all going to play out when the season's done with and how the standings shake out. We don't know how it's going to all turn out. It could help out Green Bay. It could hurt them. But we're not going to know that until the end of the regular season. But it really just feels like a loss. Green Bay. Well, what else can we say about that? One thing that we haven't really talked about yet this morning, and I don't know if we'll find out from LaFleur today and such with the bye week, but I really hope Devontae Wyatt doesn't miss a lot of time. You talk about the defensive line and the pressure that they have been able, for the most part, to provide the first 3 weeks of the season and such. Devontae Wyatt was a big part of that. And him leaving the game last night with that knee injury, and I know he's been banged up and dealing with some stuff, and he's another guy that is going to hopefully benefit from this bye week and just rest his body and hopefully get close as possible to 100% when they come back after the bye. But I just hope that is not a long-term issue for Devontae Wyatt. Because you even look at last year with Wyatt, he was off to a good start, then the ankle injury kind of, derailed it a little bit. So that's something to kind of watch. he, to me, when we talk about this defense and the importance of certain players, he has skyrocketed up that chart. Part of it was you lose Kenny Clark. Next man up. Who's going to take over as that top interior defensive lineman? It's got to be Wyatt. And Devontae Wyatt has been pretty darn good to begin the year. I mean, we talk about Parsons, Gary, and Van Ness with the amount of pressures that have increased for them this year. Devontae Wyatt was right there with them with double-digit pressures. He was right there. And I think kind of flying under the radar a little bit because, yeah, it's the defensive ends or the outside linebackers that get all the glory and the attention. But Devontae Wyatt was right there with them with pressures. And he is such, I think, given the current state of this defense, a crucial part. And I just hope that it's not a lingering, long-term issue for him that would affect his play throughout the rest of the season. We're 4 weeks into this thing. And you've heard coaches, players, analysts throughout the years kind of, say, well, after the first quarter of the season, that's when you kind of really tell what a team is. Then we start to see who really this team is or the identity of this team. And maybe we'll start to see that week 6 after this week 5 bye for Green Bay. But I honestly don't really know the identity right now. I thought I knew it. I thought we all knew it defensively, and maybe last night was just a hiccup defensively. Maybe it was. And maybe we just got to, acknowledge and tip the cap to Schottenheimer and Dallas's offense for finding the weaknesses in that Green Bay defense and exploiting it, and now you just hope Green Bay looks at that and be like, okay, how do we make sure that doesn't happen again? Because opposing offenses are going to look at that film and look at that tape and try to and look at, okay, how was Dallas able to do this? What did they do against this Green Bay defense that looked so formidable the first couple weeks of the season? So dominant. How did Dallas make Green Bay's defense look pedestrian at best? And teams are going to try to replicate that. It's a copycat league. Guaranteed Cincinnati's going to look at this, especially with a backup quarterback too. Be like, okay, how can we move the ball? What can we do that Dallas did? And so on and so on. Other teams are going to do that. And until Green Bay can show that, hey, we can stop short passes, we can stop screen passes. Last couple weeks, they've had a little bit of an issue stopping the run here too. Until Green Bay can show that, no, we can stop that. Teams are probably going to try to copy what Dallas did offensively going forward now. And then maybe another team will find another weakness and exploit that, and then Green Bay is going to have to adjust to that, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Offensively, they just got to find some consistency, running the football in the passing game. They got to get healthy on the offensive line. And LaFleur, too, from a play calling standpoint, just has to find that flow. Just has to find that flow and get into that rhythm. I feel like that's missing right now from a consistency standpoint. I mean, yes, for the most part, the offense was solid last night. Couple of boneheaded stuff that derailed it. I mean, the fumble. And then the near time expired in overtime fiasco. There's just this, that's the only word I could kind of come up with to describe what, in my opinion, I'm seeing from the offensive side is a little bit of a lack of rhythm. And is that because of the injuries up front that is throwing everything for a loop? It possibly could be. But again, as a coach and as a play caller, you adjust to it. You scheme to it. all right, we're banged up on the offensive line. What do we do to help out that group? What do I do to help out my quarterback? I know there's I did it. There's got to be others. You're looking at how Detroit did against Cleveland. And you're like, dang. And by the way, anybody counting out Detroit after week 1? And hey, I'll raise my hand. I wasn't counting them out, but I was like, I was a little question marks about the coordinators and such. Offensively, they looked like the same team the last 3 weeks here. But back to the game yesterday, you're like 34-10. 34-10. How did Detroit do that and Green Bay wasn't able to do that? Couple things really stand out to me from that game because, Jared Goff threw for $168. Wasn't like he threw for 300-some yards and such. Third down efficiency, they were just 6 of 14. They were under 50%. So what was it? They didn't allow a single sack. Green Bay couldn't say that against Cleveland. And they created 3 turnovers. They were +2 in the turnover department. 2 picks, got a fumble. So what Detroit was able to do in that game against Cleveland, in my opinion, are 2 of the issues that are plaguing Green Bay right now. From 2 of the maybe 3, if we throw in special teams in there too. Protection from their offensive line. Again, this could just be straight up as a health thing for Green Bay. You get Zach Tom back in there, you feel better about the right tackle spot. Anybody would. Anybody would. You feel a lot better. You're on your 3rd guy on the depth chart playing right tackle last night. Get healthy in the offensive line. Better job protecting. But the other part in there too, turnovers. Green Bay's defense lacking in turnovers. Not getting turnovers. And you look at, the penalties even from Detroit. 6 penalties, just 35 yards though. But this is something that, if I'm Jeff Hafley, and he knows it, we don't have to tell him this, he knows it, his staff knows it. You look at this bye week, you got to be sitting down and like, okay, we keep saying our goal, like last year, that it was a goal. We want to lead the league in turnovers. Interceptions, they were up there last year. So what did they do this year? Hey, let's up it up. We did a great job in the turnover department last year. We got a lot of picks, but we could do better in the forced fumble department. And that was a priority for them, working on that in preseason and training camp. And so far, first 4 games of the season, been, 2 picks? They haven't been getting anything. They've got to figure out a way to manufacture those. They've got to figure out a way to get the ball away. Because you look at some of the Joe Flacco. They should have been able to get more picks from him. Dak Prescott. He's a guy that has made boneheaded plays and decisions and throws. Credit to him. He played well last night with no CD Lamb and also a couple of backup offensive linemen in that game. Dak Prescott played well. But Green Bay, especially with Cincinnati and a backup quarterback in Browning, you've got to be able to come away with some turnovers. You've got to figure that out. Because you're looking at the upcoming schedule here. You should be able to get some turnovers against Cincinnati. Kyler Murray and the Cardinals. And then after that, the showdown with A-Rod. They've got to figure out the turnovers on the defensive side. I hope last night's defensive performance was a fluke. I hope it was a fluke. I hope it was a scenario. Dallas, all the Micah Parsons talk, all that Micah Parsons is going to wreck them, destroy them, whatever. Maybe that was just a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, a little bit of we're going to prove it. That that we're a good unit, blah, 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 blah. All those narratives that have been out there. Hopefully that thing was a fluke. But, you kind of look at it. Dallas, looking at their offensive performance, they put up 20 against the Eagles. And, the first half, though, they were like, okay, not bad. Giants, they put up 40. That's the Giants, I get it. Bears, they only put up 14. And then 40 against the Packers. I hope it's just a fluke. But we're not going to know until they get back on the field and play to the standard that we saw the first couple weeks of the season. But for me, I'm looking at this bye week. Get healthy. Number one. Clean up the stupid penalties, the false start stuff. For crying out loud. Twice last night at your own one, or at the opponent's one, and you have a false start. Twice. And you got to figure out defensively how you're going to get some turnovers. How do you manufacture those? You'd think, okay, pressure, get after them. And they've been doing, for the most part, getting pressure, but it's not resulting in turnovers. Why is that? That's what Hafley's got to figure out, and his staff has got to figure out, along with all the special team stuff. I'm Matt LaFleur, and I'm this coaching staff. I'm burning the midnight oil during my bye week, trying to figure this thing out. I'm burning it. There was also a play, going back to the corners too, that really just bugged me. And it was a great catch. But why did Nixon give up on that deep pass? Even if he did think it was out of bounds, still go. Follow your receiver. Follow the receiver. Just to make sure. We talk about the fire, the energy, the enthusiasm. That one really bugged me. There was a lot of plays that bugged me last night. That one's up there too. With that great catch on the sidelines. I'm blanking on the receiver from Dallas off the top of my head right now. But then there's the image of Nixon just standing in the end zone. Thinking it was going to go out of bounds is inexcusable to me. You play. Anybody who has coached in youth sports as a kid, what's one of the first things you always say, you play to the whistle. You play until you hear somebody say, play's over, dead ball, whistle, or whatever. Don't assume. Nixon got caught assuming. And that just bugged me because that, to me, showed a lack of effort. And I'm just like, what are we doing? If the receiver obviously didn't give up on the play, that bugged me. It really bugged me.